Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of She Talks Business. This week, I want to talk to you about 5 miscellaneous things about money that I think you should know. 5 things that are not long enough for an episode on their own, but combined should make an interesting show. So let's get started. Number 1, I want to talk about pricing. Pricing is a really important element of creating profit, sustainability, and longevity in your business. But pricing is also the thing that trips a lot of people up. We are afraid to price too high. We think if we price low, it'll make it easier for us to get clients. But when we price low, we don't have enough money to pay our bills. And so pricing is one of those money things that's full of all kinds of seeds of self-doubt. So the first thing I want to talk about is pricing for profit. It's really important. If you go back to the episode on making bank, I talk about budgeting and forecasting. When you understand what it costs to run your business, you should be able to distill the cost down to what percentage of every dollar goes into the cost of operations. When you do that, then you can price to ensure that you get the profit you need. So if, for example, for every dollar you charge a client, you know that 66 cents goes into expenses, then you know that you're going to end up with a 34% profit margin. Well, if you want a 50% profit margin, that means you need to charge $1.20 instead of $1 for the same service. So when you look at the cost of running your business, if you can extrapolate what that means in terms of how much it costs you for every dollar sold, you can adjust the way you price so that you can actually engineer and get the profit that you want. It's a really simple exercise to do, but it's one that most people avoid because people don't like looking at how much it costs them to run the business. People are enamored with the top line revenue and not infatuated enough with the bottom line, which is the money you get to keep. So, number 1, when it comes to pricing, is pricing for profit. Number 2, this is something that I talk to my clients about regularly. Pricing to be generous. Nobody likes to be nickeled and dimed. No one wants to be told, oh, that's going to cost $1 more. When you go to, you go to a restaurant and you ask for ketchup to go with your fries and they tell you it's $1 extra, you feel a little taken, right? So when you are pricing, you want to price a little bit of a buffer in so that you can afford to be generous. Don't price things so tightly that if your client asks you for a little something, something, you immediately feel like you're being taken. Don't let your discomfort with pricing accordingly get in the way of actually building a business where customers actually value and appreciate what you do because you have the space to do a little bit more. Now, I'm not talking about ginormous scope creep here. But I'm talking about a little bit of flexibility so that you don't get upset with your customer for asking for something that is not unreasonable, and your customer doesn't get upset with you because you're nickel and diming them. So when you're pricing projects, when you're looking at not only what it costs to run your business, also ask yourself, what would I need to charge so that I could actually feel generous about taking care of the client in this instance? Charge that. The third thing you want to consider is pricing for value. Sometimes you look at the work you do and the price doesn't align with the value. I remember years ago, somebody came to me and they wanted me to advise them and help them with a marketing strategy. And it was they wanted to build a new sales channel and they were hoping to accomplish $1 million in sales within the first 18 months. And way back then, I think that my quote was pathetically low. I think it was like $25,000 to $50,000 to help them. And they came back and told me that they had a budget for $5,000. Now, $5,000 to get $1 million in sales, that's some pretty fine ROI. You also want to understand what the value of your work is so that your pricing can be in alignment with the value you're providing your client. And value isn't always the quantifiable outcome. Sometimes value is intrinsic. Sometimes value is about making a place a better experience for customers and clients. Sometimes it's helping somebody build self-confidence. But understand the value, understand why it matters to your buyer before you grab your pen and start writing out what your price is. Ask them, Why does this matter to you? What is the value that you're expecting to get from this interaction? How will you measure whether this has been successful and get them to tell you? And then the last thing I want to talk about with pricing is increasing your fees. We've gone through a season with inflation where the cost of everything has gone up. And if the cost of your prices haven't, then you're eroding your bottom line. You've got to get comfortable having conversations with customers and letting them know that your prices are going up, that your fees are going up. If you're not comfortable having the conversation, you may want to email people and let them know on such and such a date. Give them 90 days notice, give them 6 months notice, whatever makes you feel comfortable. Your fee structure will be changing. But you can't continue to charge the same dollar for the services that you are providing if the 66 cents that it used to cost to operate now costs you $1.02. This is again why going back to the podcast on making bank is important. You have to understand what it costs you to operate your business. Otherwise, your pricing will never follow along. And if you grandfather people in on pricing plans that cost you money, that's not a business, that's a charity. So you have to decide what business you're in. Are you in the business of giving away your money, or are you in the business of making money? All right. The second thing I want to talk to you about is debt. Debt. There are all kinds of debt out there. And, I remember sitting in a room one day. I was at an event and a speaker from the stage was selling her program. And she literally told people to go to the bank and get a loan to invest in her coaching so that the money they owed didn't come between her and them, but it was between them and the bank. It was the most ludicrous, salesy, manipulative advice I've ever heard before. So let's talk a little bit about debt. First of all, before we talk about debt, let's talk about relationship. You need to have a relationship with your banker. If you don't have a relationship with your banker, if you don't know who your banker is, you're missing out. You're missing out because your banker can make decisions to make things happen for you when times are tough. So make it a point of dropping by the bank every so often and building a relationship with the person who is actually in charge of the bank or in charge of the business section of the bank. That relationship will help you. Recently, I ran into a situation where my business card was compromised, and I emailed the manager of the bank where I do my business banking, and I let him know that something had happened, and he immediately fast-tracked a new card, couriered out to me, and waived the fee. Why did he do that? Because I have a relationship with him. I have a relationship. I go into the bank and I treat him well when I go to the bank. So build a relationship with your bankers if you want your bankers to help you. Now let's talk about debt. There are two types of debt. There's good debt and there's bad debt. So I don't want you to think that all debt is evil. All debt is not evil. You can use debt to invest in your business and grow your business. Now, I'm not sure hiring an internet marketing coach is the way that you want to invest debt in your business. But let's just say you are like my friend Elizabeth, who owns a paper shop. And I don't actually know if she used debt to do this or not. So I'm not saying she did. I actually don't know. But I do know that one of the things that she did to expand her business is she bought a printer. And not, the little kind of printer that you and I have in our office. She bought like a big ass printer so that she could print stationery and cards, and she could do binding, and she could print art and all kinds of really cool stuff in her store. Now, I don't know what a printer like that costs, but I'm sure it doesn't cost like $99. That would be an example of where you could be using debt to get a return on your investment. Let's just say, hypothetically, that this printer was, I don't know, $50,000. But she knew that she could generate $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month in printing revenue if she went to the bank and financed that over a 5-year period. That would be what you would consider good debt. It's good debt because it's not impulsive. There's actually a plan behind it, and you can tie the revenue to the investment, and you can see how that investment is allowing you to gain leverage and build momentum in your business. Now let's talk about bad debt. Bad debt is when you buy those online courses on your credit card and you can't pay them off. Bad debt is when you hire the coach and you put your coach on your credit card. It's consumer debt that isn't helping you make money. you know what? Maybe you are using your credit card to pay your coach. If your coach is helping you generate more money, then that's a different situation. But if your coach is not helping you generate an ROI on your investment, then you might want to rethink your coach. Whatever you're using debt for should be generating more for you than what it's costing you to fulfill or service the debt. You don't get debt for free. You're going to have to pay interest on that debt. So make sure you're taking that into consideration before you decide what to use debt for. When I was young and in my 20s, I used to use my credit card for everything. Consumer debt out the wazoo. Makeup, yeah. Perfume, yeah. New clothes, shoes, yeah. More. It was the dumbest debt I ever could have carried because all of those things are depreciating and they're not worth anything. They're not assets. They're worth half of what I paid for them the minute I leave the store and use them the first time. You know, they're probably worth 10% of what I paid for them in some cases. Because I mean, let's face it, who wants to buy used lipstick? So when you are using debt, use it on things that's going to help you further and improve the sales and the performance of your business. And here's the last thing I'm going to say, which really connects back to the relationship with your banker. The best time to ask for credit at the bank is when you don't need it. Don't go into the bank and ask your banker to work a miracle for you when you're maxed out on credit cards and you've got 99 cents in your bank account. Go to the bank when you have your highest balance possible and talk to that person you have a relationship with about getting a line of credit or getting an extension on your credit card so that you have the money you need when, if and when a situation arises and you need it. But you never want to ask the bank for money when you don't have any. All right, number three. Number three is kind of an interesting thing. I want you to look for inspirational models. So when I was in my mid-20s and my husband and I had first started dating and we bought our first townhome together, there was a guy that he worked with. And that guy and his wife were paying off their mortgage every 2 weeks, and they were putting extra money on their mortgage every year because they wanted to be mortgage free by 40. And when he told me that, I was like, that's a thing? People actually pay off their mortgage? Like, that's unbelievable. I don't know anybody that pays off their mortgage. I just know people that refinance their mortgage. I didn't know people did that. But that experience and that story planted a seed in me. Now, I was the kind of person that wanted to be mortgage free by 40. I was the kind of person who wanted to pay my mortgage every other week or every week. And I wanted to put extra money on it. I wanted to do the things that would allow us to be mortgage free. And sure enough, by the age of 41, we were. But we did it by buying and flipping real estate. We did it by, fixing up houses and selling them and then moving to the next house and doing the same over and over again, to the point that by the time we were 41, we owned our home in Canada mortgage free, and we owned a home in the United States in Florida, in Naples, Florida, of all places, mortgage free. So look for inspirational models. Another inspirational model that you can look for is a bank balance. I remember one day listening to a webinar back in the day when Frank Kern was cool and hip. And he said, you're not a millionaire unless you have $1 million in the bank. And I was like, oh my God, average people can do that? $1 million in the bank? Like, that's so cool. And so that set me on a journey to actually build up an accumulation of money in my bank account, to go beyond just wanting to be mortgage free, but to actually acquire a significant balance that I could be proud of. And so I remember working with a client of mine at one point, and this client literally generates 15 times what they originally generated in their first year of, I think they generate 15 times more than what they generated the previous year of working with me from when we started. All right. So it might even be more than that, because I think the first year was like 30 some thousand. And now I think it's like over 600,000. But I can't tell you how proud I was the first time they told me that they had 6 figures in the bank. And then when my clients come and they tell me they've got 250,000 in the bank, or they come to me and they tell me they sold a piece of real estate and they made $500,000 on it. Find inspirational models that you can look at and look towards, and you can emulate in your own life and business. Your business is a vehicle that can help you to do these things. But look around and see what other people are doing. You want to be the average of the 5 most affluent people around you. You don't want to be the average of the 5 poorest people. If you're hanging around poor people, you're hanging around broke people, then guess what? You're picking up broke attitudes and broke mindsets. When you hang around with people who are serious about creating wealth and creating value for others, and they're not afraid to charge what they're worth, guess what? Your game changes. Find those people, spend time with those people. All right, number 4. Number 4 in my list of 5 miscellaneous, and this is a good one, it's called guilt. People have 2 kinds of guilt in their business, all right? They probably have 3 types of guilt. The first guilt they have is, I'm not making any money, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I'm not making any money. They feel guilty, they feel shameful, they feel bad about that. But then guess what? Once they start making money, they start to feel guilty about that. They feel guilty because they know other people that aren't making money. And so they feel guilty that they're doing okay. Don't do that. Let that go. Be proud of what you're doing. Share what you're doing. Inspire other people so they know what is possible for them too. The other place where people start to feel guilty is they get guilty about taking money out of their business. As an owner, the profits in your business belong to you. It's your right to take that money. That's what you work so hard for. When you have fulfilled all of your financial obligations, you've paid your team members, you've paid your bills, you paid the expenses, you paid the tax man, and there's money left over, that money is yours. Now, Greg Schinkel and I talk a little bit about this when I interview him on this season. There's a certain amount of money that you want to keep in the bank, but there's a certain amount of money you want to take off the table. And you have to lose the feeling of guilt when it comes to doing that. The reason you started a business is to achieve freedom of time and freedom of money. So don't feel guilty about taking money when you start making money. The last thing I want to talk about is investing. And I'm going to put this little disclaimer in. I am not a financial planner. I am not a financial advisor. So listen to me at your own risk. All right. I am just a girl who's a high school dropout who's built 1, 2, 3 businesses that have done over 7 figures in business and have built a pretty decent life for myself. So let me talk to you a little bit about investing. First of all, when you're investing, know what the ROI is you expect. What is the return on investment that you want to get out of your money? And what risk are you prepared to take? Don't invest $50,000 in some random scheme if you can't afford to lose $50,000. You never want to invest more than you can afford to lose. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is when you are investing, you should get clear on what you would like the return on your investment to be to feel good about it. Are you looking for a 10% return? Are you looking for a 10x return? Figure out what that is so that you can measure the effectiveness of your investments as you go along, and you can do more of what works and less of what doesn't work. The second thing you want to think about is investing in your business. Investing in your business isn't just spending money on stuff in your business. Let's go back to the printer example. Investing in your business is intentionally investing money in something that will help you make money. So don't buy into when people tell me that they don't have a profit and they don't pay themselves because they're investing in their business, I call BS. That's not investing in your business. That's spending your profit and not understanding cash flow. So if you're going to invest in your business, do so with intention. Another place you may want to consider investing, and I'm going to talk to Michelle Bosch about this on this season as well, is in real estate. Real estate is a great way for you to invest money and make money. Whether you are investing in real estate to buy and sell, or you're investing in real estate as a rental property or a vacation property, there are lots of great opportunities out there for you to invest in real estate. A colleague of mine, Deborah McDonald, started investing in real estate years and years and years ago. And she would put the minimum down payment on a home, and then she would get a mortgage, and her tenants would literally pay off the mortgage. That is like the ultimate cash machine, because 20 years later, when the mortgage is paid off, guess what? She still owns the asset. It is appreciated over 20 years. She can sell it. Yeah, she's going to pay capital gains, but holy cow, she's going to make gobs of money too. So don't underestimate the power of owning real estate. If you don't want to get into real estate because you don't want to deal with tenants, another way to invest is second mortgages. There are lots of companies out there. Google second mortgages. Ask people you know who invest in second mortgages for a referral. Do your due diligence before you invest. But second mortgages is another good way to invest money that can make you money. So typically you become a private lender, and whoever is getting the money is going to pay you interest instead of paying the bank interest. So if you want to do that, there are places you can do that. I just recommend when you do that, that you are better to invest multiple small loans versus one big loan. Because if somebody defaults and you have multiple small loans, it's not going to hurt as much as if you put all your eggs in one basket. So if it's me personally, I would rather have 4 second mortgages that are 25,000 than 1 second mortgage that is 100. I feel like I mitigate my risk there and I maximize my value. The next thing on the list is, RSPs, 401ks, whatever, mutual funds, if you're into that stuff. I personally am not. I'm not, because I don't trust somebody else to manage my money for me. So if you find somebody who's really good at that and you can measure the ROI, then that might be a good thing to do. Or if investing, I know if you're Canadian, if you invest in an RSP, you might get a tax benefit, and that may be a good thing for you. So that is the typical and traditional way that people invest money, but it's not the only way to invest money. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is the stock market. If you listen to my interview with Myosha Boykin Anderson a while back, one of the things that Myosha talked about is she has a hobby. She calls it her 6-figure hobby. And she started by investing a little tiny bit of money in the stock market. And she started out as a game to see what she could do with that money. And she grew it into a 6-figure a year hobby. But she spends time and energy researching these stocks, and she buys and sells daily or weekly. And it's a little bit of a game for her, but it's a fun game. I'm not talking about, investing and holding. That's not, you can do that too, but I'm talking about investing with the intention of generating an ROI. So there are lots of ways to invest in the stock market. But what I love about what Myosha did is she took a small amount of money. I think it was like $1,000 when she started, and she turned that into more, and she kept reinvesting and reinvesting and reinvesting. So you could see the power of the ROI, and it's exciting and it's fun. As we wrap up this episode, if I could say one thing to you, when you start to generate more money in your business, you can use money to have fun. Money will never buy you happiness, but I'd rather be sad at the spa than sad on a street corner. So these 5 miscellaneous things are things you probably should know and think about when it comes to money. I hope this has been helpful. And I'd love to know from you. Leave me a comment either on my blog or on my podcast role on my website at lisalarter.com, or send me a message on Instagram at lisalarter and let me know, what is another miscellaneous thing about money that you think people should know? I'd love to hear it. And I hope you're enjoying this season all about money. And if you've learned anything, I'd love to hear from you in our show reviews. Leave us a review and tell me, what is one thing that you've learned about money from listening to this season that you didn't know? What was one thing that you got from this season that was beneficial and helpful? I really want to know. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.